Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Primetime News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Nicola D'Souza. We start off with our top stories.
Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Large-Scale Fraud and Corruption hands over final report to the President. Central Bank takes decisions to regulate ETI Finance Limited and Swarna Mahal Financial Services PLC. Will SLFP take action against former President Mahinda Rajapaksa for promoting another political party? Prime Minister signs Election Commission's proposal to table media guidelines to Parliament. 4 wounded in shooting in Naglagam Street. Body of British national found in Maligawata, police suspect murder.
The final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate and inquire into serious acts of fraud, corruption and abuse of power, state resources and privileges was handed over to the President earlier today.
The 1,135-page report was handed over to President Maithripala Sirisena by the Chairman of the Commission, P. Padman Surasena. Secretary of the Commission, H.W. Gunadasa, and members Vikum Kalwarachi, R. Ranasinghe, Gihan Kulatunga, and P.A. Prematilaka were also present for the occasion. Secretary to the President, Austin Fernando, was also in attendance.
Today, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna requested the Presidential Secretariat for a copy of the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to investigate the controversial central bank bond transaction for the purpose of studying its content.
The request was made by JVP parliamentarian Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa and attorney-at-law Sunil Batagala. They had requested for details of the complaints the Commission had received during its tenure, as well as for the details of the investigations and its final report. The JVP made the request under the provisions of the Right to Information Act No. 12 of 2016. 17 reports, including the report of the Bond Commission and the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Large-Scale Fraud and Corruption, have been handed over to the President. Today, another 17 additional reports are being handed over to the President. This brings a total of 34 reports which have been handed over to the President. Why do we think it is important for the people to know about these reports? Well, these commissions are maintained with the people's tax money, so they have the right to know what is happening in these reports.
President Maithripala Sirisena is to make a special statement regarding the report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the bond issue and the recommendations it has made. This was the main point of discussion at media briefings today.
It is clear the UMP, starting from the Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Kabir Hashim and Samar Wickrama involved in this incident. The report must be presented to Parliament and it must be made available to the people so they would know the truth surrounding this incident.
The
people remove one political party and elect another into power not to pave the way for theft, extortion and destroy the country. We need to be able to engage in politics in a respectable manner. We must build our character in a manner in which the allegations we make against others on the election platform do not come back to haunt us.
The government must take action to recover the illegally generated money. If something has been purchased using these funds, those need to be termed as illegal. The government must take action to reclaim those purchases. If money has been moved overseas, that must also be looked into, because those involved in this scam have close ties with Singapore. Newspapers and distilleries have been set up. If these were established using the stolen money, action must be taken to reclaim those establishments to the government.
රජයට පවරා ගැනීම සඳහා ක්‍රියා කළ යුතු ඇති වෙනවා.
Following the theft at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the interest rates at banks increased. Taxes have increased. The prices of goods have increased. The central bank theft was the main reason for all these increases. The people have been burdened to recover those losses. The people do not understand this. They cannot evade this by simply passing it on to the Attorney General.
There is no need to resend it to the Attorney General. The Attorney General will have to file cases. There is short paths to undertake to punish those accountable by either using the sword or the stingray. The government was elected to nab the rogues, chase them away and protect this country from them. No one in this government has a right to protect rogues and assist them. The cleansing process must start now.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe signed the proposal on media ethics for print and electronic media prepared by the National Elections Commission. This proposal is to be presented to Parliament.
Recently, the National Elections Commission published via a 32 criteria that needs to be followed. Commencing its duties for the new year, the Prime Minister signed the proposal, including the criteria that will be presented to Parliament.
We hope to present this to Parliament and pass it. As a government, we are prepared to follow the law and the law related to elections. We have introduced a new election system, and under this, we hope to follow good governance. We hope to implement this system to the letter, and I believe everyone will support this.
Those were the comments of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe after signing the proposal on media ethics for print and electronic media prepared by the National Elections Commission. Now, it is fine if this proposal is tabled in Parliament with good intention. It poses no threat to the country's democracy. However, we do have concerns because we have had bad experiences not so long ago with this government coming into power. When the Foreign Exchange Act and the Inland Revenue Act were passed in Parliament, there were accusations that they had undergone some changes unknown to the public and even some of the MPs in Parliament. There was also a proposal to establish an independent Council for News Media Standards Act, which aimed at regulating the media and even contained some clauses which could sentence journalists to prison. So there are fears and doubts among the people and the media that some changes in this proposal too could be snuck into parliamentary approval without the knowledge of the people of this country and its lawmakers. We have the Gazette, which contains these media guidelines prepared by the National Elections Commission and contains the signatures of 3 of its officials, including its chairman, Mahinda Deshapriya. We will wait and see if any of these 32 media guidelines prepared by the National Elections Commission will be subjected to any kind of change when presented to Parliament. In the meantime, let's take a look at what activists had to say in this regard.
The whole exercise of giving guidelines to the media is done continuously and solely by the Election Commission, and there's no involvement from any contesting political parties for this matter. And in the other hand, we have experienced that so many occasions during the previous times that the Parliament has amended the acts which has come to the legislative in a very broad manner. It was said that allowing the women representation for the nominations was the whole purpose of that particular amendment. But we saw at final stage there was a totally new amendments were introduced, and moreover we saw during the Exchange Control Act debate the change of the act was taken place. No one knew what exactly happened until it was passed and gazetted. Just because of these sort of undue and unethical exercises, we should be very careful that something which will be harming to the freedom of expression, to the media, to independency of the media should not take place in the name of the media guidelines, which was very correctly issued by the Election Commission.
Moving on to other local stories now. President Maithripala Sirisena has informed the Cabinet of Ministers to avoid considering proposals on power generation without the inspections and recommendations of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. The President had issued this instruction when presenting the findings of the long-term generation expansion plan that was presented to the Cabinet, which includes the proposal of constructing 2 new coal power plants.
On the 23rd of November last year, Ministers Dr. Saratha Munugama and Ranjit Siambalapitiya presented a joint cabinet paper proposing the construction of 2 new coal power plants. According to the proposal, these coal power plants would be constructed in Sampur and Narochole and will be equipped with clean coal technology. The proposal, however, was rejected by Cabinet. President Maithripala Sirisena had also presented findings of the proposal to the Cabinet on the 18th of December last year. The President had pointed out that according to the acts currently in place, it is the Public Utilities Commission that has the powers of approving the least cost long-term generation expansion plan. The President had emphasized that the Cabinet of Ministers should ensure they avoid approving any plan in this regard outside the legal process. President Maithripala Sirisena thereby had ordered that the joint cabinet proposal be directed to the Public Utilities Commission for approval. President Maithripala Sirisena had also informed Cabinet that if needed, the proposal could be presented to the National Economic Council for further consideration and recommendations.
The central bank has taken regulatory action on ETI Finance Limited and Swarna Mahal Financial Services PLC. The action has been taken with a view to safeguard the interests of the depositors and other creditors of the two companies and to ensure safety and soundness of the financial system.
Thereby, the central bank has decided to appoint a panel to manage the affairs of both companies and to restrict the withdrawal of maturing deposits and renew such deposits for a period of 6 months. In addition, the payment of interest due to deposits must be done as per agreed terms and conditions. The central bank says the companies can finalize the negotiations with the prospective investors, and the central bank will facilitate suitable investors as per the applicable laws and regulations.
We didn't run the business. We tried to improve the situation through directions, and the directions were violated on a regular basis. That's one of the reasons why it didn't turn around. So now we have taken it into our own hands. The board of directors have very little powers. Our panel of experts will run the show. Okay, there was mismanagement, which has led to a liquidity problem. In addition, there was consistent violation of our directions. The liquidity issue was identified some time back, but it became critical now. So we had to take action. We have been, essentially, when did we first issue a direction? Some years back, I think, right? 2012 was the first set of directions. No, we don't think it's too late. But if if one is honest, that there probably has been regulatory forbearance, which is, I don't think one can blame anybody in this room for that. But the political climate in this country, you can't always. Our technicians are not always able to operate in the way they need to. But now we have a carte blanche to do what we have to do.
So it's central bank's fault, right?
Well, how is it the central bank's fault? We have been trying to get them on the right course, right? We've been trying to get them on the right course. Now we've come to the conclusion that we need to move to take it over and do it ourselves.
Is it too late?
I've just told you it's not too late. We don't think it's too late. Because for the reasons that I told you. Often in this country, the delays are caused by political factors interfering into the workings of institutions. And here again, that has happened in the past. So now we have to make sure it doesn't happen in the future.
We heard from the Governor of the Central Bank the situation pertaining to ETI and Swarna Mahal Financial Services PLC. Now, with all of this happening, we also have information to say that a Malaysian businessman was trying to mediate a deal to bring in a Singaporean company to come in and invest in ETI and Swarna Mahal Financial Services PLC. And now, this company in question is a company identified by the name of Straits Grid PTE, a Singaporean-based company. The mother company is something else, but the company is that the person who is trying to mediate this deal is Mr. Jayasudhir Jayaram. Who is this Jayasudhir Jayaram?
Chaturanga, Jayasudhir Jairam comes into our country to carry out a $250 million US project, and that's the Horton Square project, to construct a 75-story residential complex. And interestingly, the company has been set up on the 3rd of April 2017, and it appears to be a special purpose vehicle.
Right.
Also interestingly, the groundbreaking for the project, the Horton Square project, happens just a fortnight later, 14 days later, on the 17th of April. Now, the shareholders of this company are Muthuswamy Manivanan, Jayasudhir Jairam, and a corporate investor going by the name of Paradise Isle Holdings Limited. Now, Paradise Isle Holdings Limited is a company registered in the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and has been named and identified in the leaked Mossack Fonseca Panama Papers revelations.
Yes, Faraz. Now, it's interesting because we see that two of these names that you just mentioned, actually all three of the shareholders that you mentioned, are having some sort of black history or a dark history in terms of financial situations surrounding them. As you said, as you can see here, it's clearly mentioned on the offshore leaks database of the International Consortium of Journalists that the company that you just mentioned, Paradise Isle Private Limited, is in fact mentioned in the Mossack Fonseca company and the Panama Leaks papers.
I think we ought to point out that the mere mention of their name in the Panama Papers as an offshore entity does not necessarily confer any sort of wrongdoing, but we're mentioning it because it may well be relevant.
As we go along with the people who are involved in this whole transaction, we can see that there is in fact something alarming for us. I'm going to move on and bring to your attention of a situation where the minister in charge of Megapolis and Western Development, partly Champika Ranawaka, soon after this project was announced, found suspicious dealings between two of the shareholders. He seemed to have the cause to ask the IGP, the Inspector General of Police, to launch an investigation into two shareholders who allegedly had dealings among them. They were Muthuswamy Manivanan and this Jayasudhir Jairam that we are talking about.
Right. So this is the same Jayasudhir Jairam who was arrested at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Colombo on the 10th of November 2017, and he was trying to smuggle out $100,000 US along with his son, who was traveling with him at the same time.
They both had $50,000 US each with them, and there was also another two people who got caught or got arrested by the customs officials on the same day with another $108,000 US.
Right.
Those people were fined, but these two gentlemen said, no, look, they were nabbed on the 10th of November, and they said, look, we'll come back, keep the money with you, we'll come back on the 23rd and face the relevant legal procedures that are required, and we'll sort it out on the 23rd. 23rd came and went by, they never came back to the country. So very recently, I think yesterday, the government decided to confiscate all that money, including the 108,000 which was nabbed with the other two people.
Right. Now, Chaturanga, how does this become a problem for the public? This appears to be a private project. So why the public angle to it?
For us, now, you know that there were various projects announced during, from the time 2015 up until today, the second day of 2018, there were various mega projects announced. But we also see a situation where these mega projects are not actually realized, they are not actually completed, or we don't see any positive construction or anything happening in terms of these projects. Now, we see people coming into the country with a lot of money, saying we are going to invest in this particular project. We've seen the situation when it comes to the tallest building in our country.
That's right, and the tire factory.
Volkswagen.
And Volkswagen.
Yes.
That's right. So I get your point that this has become of public interest because of the type of investor that is encouraged to come to Sri Lanka, and soon Sri Lanka will end up with a fairly robust reputation for being an easy touch in terms of money laundering and so on.
For us, with the example we have now, we have an investor coming into the country and saying this is what we are going to invest in, and we see that same investor getting caught trying to smuggle out 50,000 USD along with his son 100,000 USD. So does this mean that these are the type of investors that we have in our country coming in?
Well, I don't think these type of investors sort of endear themselves to foreign direct investment because for FDI should be for the long term and not for short term and personal and very limited, narrow gains.
Thank you very much. That's all we have for you in terms of this story that we are following. We'll keep you updated as we go along. It's back to the studio. Nicola?
Thank you, Chaturanga. Still in local news, candidates contesting under the ticket of the Podujana Peramuna gathered at the Sukadadasa Indoor Stadium today for a conference.
The event was presided over by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, and the candidate presented their policy manifesto. It was named as the People's Convention. The candidates who will be contesting the upcoming local government elections made a pledge at this event.
පරිසරයට ආදරය කරනු ලබන පරමාදර්ශී මැතිවරණ ව්‍යාපාරයක් පළාත් පාලන ආයතනයට තේරී පත්වීමෙන් අනතුරුව අදාළ සභාව තුළ
The former president's attendance at the meeting of the Podujana Peramuna was questioned by journalists at a media briefing held by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
We have made it clear that Sri Lanka Freedom Party will take a decision against all SLFP supporters and MPs who support any other alternative political party. We will enforce that decision. We will have to reach a decision after this evening. He has to make a statement in public appearing for the symbol of the flower bud. He must say that he is the leader of this. He is acting as an invisible leader. That is the issue.
Firefighters and locals battled raging infernos in Valasmulla, Bambalapitiya and Anuradhapura overnight.
According to the Colombo Fire Service Department, 90% of the fire hydrants have been sealed, making it difficult for firefighters to access water to douse a fire. On our own visit to these sites, it was clear that many of these hydrants have been sealed off or in a dilapidated state. In such a backdrop, several fires were reported from a number of areas. A fire broke out in a house located in Galnava in Anuradhapura. Police said the house was empty at the time. However, the inferno did not spare any furniture or household equipment. Police believe a power leakage would have been the cause of the fire. A fire broke out inside a medicine storage facility at the Valasmulla Base Hospital at midnight yesterday. Medicine valued at over 1 million rupees was destroyed in the fire. The fire was put out with the assistance of the hospital employees. Police believe a power leakage would have been the cause of the blaze. A fire broke out inside a private showroom in Bambalapitiya last night. The Colombo Fire Brigade said 7 units were dispatched to douse the fire. A correspondent said the Dehiwala Mount Lavinia Fire Brigade assisted in the process. The first floor of the showroom was completely destroyed and the cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained. Several related incidents were reported during the past few days. Authorities believe fireworks were the main cause for these fires. A fire was reported from the Meetatomulla garbage dump in Kolonnawa last evening. The fire brigade dispatched 3 units to contain the fire. A fire broke out in a 10-storied building down Vanderwert Place in Dehiwala. 8 floors were badly damaged in the fire. Police believe fireworks were the cause of the fire. A 3-storied building located in Napawala, Avissawala was completely destroyed in a fire yesterday. Our correspondent said the building was used to store imported goods. On New Year's Eve, storage premises in Orogodawatta caught fire and the fire brigade dispatched 6 units to contain the fire. The Colombo Fire Services Department says the general public must be aware on how to prevent fires.
We now have a report on a series of crimes committed in the past 24 hours. 4 people were injured in a shooting in the Nagalagam Street area in Colombo this evening.
The injured were residents of Totalanga. It is reported a verbal dispute had taken place between the injured and a group that arrived in a 3-wheeler. Thereafter, shots had been fired and the injured were rushed to the accident ward of the National Hospital in Colombo. A spokesperson said the condition of one of the injured was serious. A body of a British national who died under mysterious circumstances was discovered in Arlia Oyana Maligavatta. Police made the discovery in a park located opposite the pensions department following a tip-off this morning. The deceased has been identified as 37-year-old Charles Bearer from the UK. Police said there were injuries in the victim's face and his passport was located nearby. This morning, a cash transport was obstructed down Park Road in Noor Elia and a sum of 14.5 million rupees was stolen by a gang of robbers. Police said the money belonged to a tobacco agent and was being transported in a small lorry to be deposited in a bank.
I expect the judiciary to now take over because the Attorney General's department is a weakling. It's a shadow of the Prime Minister. Now I think that this matter...
You could hardly call Dapper de Rivera shadow of the Prime Minister.
I could call it because why didn't they cross-examine the Prime Minister? Why did they give advanced questions? Is that the way the Attorney General conducts himself?
But that is not... was that a decision of the Attorney General? It couldn't have been a decision of Mr. Kodagoda or Mr. De Rivera.
Certainly not Mr. Kodagoda. I don't know Mr. De Rivera. He has been warned by the eminent judge, Mr. Prasanna Jayawardena, for his way he conducted himself.
Well, I think it's possible for people who regularly observed him that Mr. De Rivera sometimes got carried away, but that was in the heat of the moment and a sort of a legal flourish.
But he did not cross-examine Mr. Malik Samaravikrama or Mr. Kabir Hashim. I think I fault him for that. But certainly they are both people who played ball with the government, and I would say this is why I would recommend that
I think you'll find that a lot of people will disagree with you if you say that Mr. De Rivera and Mr. Kodagoda played ball with the government.
I would say not Mr. Kodagoda. Mr. De Rivera, yes, I would say that. I would say that over and over again. I've said it so, because from that time he was very important, because there was so much of variance between Mr. Vikramasinghe's statement and Mr. Malik Samaravikrama's statement and Kabir Hashim's statement.
That's right.
He should have questioned. Why didn't he ask him? Because if you don't question, the presumption is that you have no questions to ask and every word they say is accepted as correct by the prosecution. That is the presumption in law.
On to some sports news now. Rohan Gunaratne, the executive director of the Sri Lanka Rugby Football Union, says the governing body is yet to receive a complaint regarding an altercation that took place on Saturday when Sri Lanka Navy locked horns with CHNFC.
An altercation took place between the players of Sri Lanka Navy and CHNFC in a match played in Balisara under the Interclub Rugby League. Cameras captured the manner Yoshitha Rajapaksa playing for CHNFC and Namal Rajapaksa, who was assisting the team, getting involved in the altercation. However, many questioned how a person who was not in the team acting in the capacity of an assistant.
We did not receive any complaint. We need to be given it in writing. They can hire anyone to assist them. They can have a water boy, the medics from elsewhere. It does not have to be a player at all. But that decision must be taken by the council. It must be decided at the committee meetings of the council.
Manager of CHNFC, Dhammika Madagedara, says only a verbal dispute took place in the match.
Only a verbal dispute took place between the players. Namal Rajapaksa and Yoshitha Rajapaksa intervened to resolve the matter. There was no physical altercations. What is being spread on the internet is all untrue. There was no attack.
Stay tuned. Up next is Biz First in Focus, where we discuss export growth and economic reforms anticipated in 2018 with Ramal Jayasinghe, the President of the National Chamber of Exporters.
Well, that's a wrap of your primetime news. Thank you for joining us. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Nicola De Zoiza.
And I'm Shane Silva. Take care and good night.